aceptado el trabajo.
And thank you to the organization for accepting our offer to come here. There are many people who were not accepted to come in, and we hope you enjoy our speech. Jorge and I have spent a lot of time trying to ensure that it's as enjoyable as possible. We want to talk about augmented reality and also its connection to security.
Lo primero de todo, ¿quiénes somos? Mi compañero Jorge Cuadrado,
my colleague Jorge Cuadrado.
Next Technologies, al igual que yo,
trabajamos en el área de
seguridad.
Technologies and work in the security section.
Para la empresa y hacemos cosillas de investigación
and also in terms of
que puede aportar la realidad aumentada
to see
la compañía.
what virtual reality could do within our company.
Miguel Hernandez, ya ha estado por la mañana.
So I'm Miguel Hernandez, I was here for this morning,
estaremos por aquí ya que
and we
participamos
work
ambos
together in
en
this
el hackathon,
field, and we'll be involved in the hackathon later on as well, so you can come and ask us any questions if you have
¿De
any.
qué va a ir la charla? No
So
necesitas
what will this
conocimientos
speech be
de
about?
realidad aumentada,
You
¿vale?
do
Vamos
not
poco a
need
poco,
technical
vamos a
knowledge
introducir qué es realidad
of
aumentada,
augmented
cómo se
reality.
puede,
We're going to talk about it
cómo
a
ha ido
little bit and how it has evolved
qué casos de
over
uso
the
pueden
years,
existir, y luego
and
Jorge va a
the
hacer la parte de
uses that it's
seguridad,
put to,
¿vale? Cómo
and
podemos
its
aplicar
relationship to
seguridad
security.
en realidad aumentada. Con casos que ya han existido, trabajos que hayan hecho y
We'll
las
talk about
propuestas que hacemos
cases that
nosotros
have
de cómo
existed
implementar
and how to
con lo que sería realidad aumentada segura
implement
o casos donde nos
safe
podría
augmented
servir
reality
la
on cases
realidad
in
aumentada para
which it
mejorar la seguridad
could
en nuestras
serve
organizaciones.
to help
Toda
safety
la parte
within our
práctica la llevará Jorge,
organizations.
yo os contaré un
All
poquito
the
la parte
practical side will
teórica
be taken by Jorge, and I'll do the
si
little
tenéis
bit of
ordenador
the
y lo podéis
talking.
ir siguiendo es mucho mejor porque va a haber mucha parte práctica,
This
va a
will be
estar con el
a
ordenador
significant
enseñándoos el código,
practical
haciendo
part
pruebas con la
here, so
cámara,
if you
etcétera,
have
pero lo podéis seguir haciendo vosotros si sabéis
access
del
to your
ordenador.
computers, then that's
Y
good
os
because you
enseñamos
can
unas
follow it
POCs que están todos
directly.
subidos a GitHub, ya lo veréis, y un
All the
poco
information is up
unas
on
propuestas que os ponemos para ver
GitHub.
cómo
You'll
podéis
see.
ayudarnos, ¿no? Cómo
And
podemos
you can
mejorar o qué
have an
otras
idea
ideas
of
nos
how
hemos
we can
ocurrido nosotros y
help
podíamos
one another, ideas that
realizar.
you could give us of things that we
Bueno,
haven't thought of before.
visto todo esto, me tengo que acordar de apuntar ahí. Voy a empezar con lo que sería realidad aumentada, ¿no?
So
La
let's
parte
talk a little bit about
Pues
the
bueno.
theory of augmented reality.
¿Qué es realidad aumentada?
What is
Básicamente es
augmented
todas las
reality?
tecnologías que están
Basically,
dándote
it's
más
all
información de lo
the
que la realidad
technology
te ofrece, ¿vale?
that,
Tú necesitas un
that
dispositivo
gives you more
tecnológico que te
information than what you
ofrezca
get in reality.
inclusión de información, ¿vale? Puede ser de cualquier tipo
It can be
y
of any
aunque no lo creáis,
kind,
ya lleva tiempo
actually this has
entre
been
nosotros.
up and running for quite some
Apareció por
time
primera
now. It existed over 100 years ago for the first time. As you can see, the device was there quite large, and the capacity was much more limited, but it existed for the first time in 1901. They would introduce more information using images in order to improve what you were looking at in terms of visibility for the information. So it's used in many different areas. How has this evolved over time? Obviously, many years ago, the devices were much larger and they were used in university for education, and it wasn't available in our homes. And it was used a lot in medicine, but a lot more in the field of universities. In the 80s, things improved quite a lot in terms of the size of the devices. They were a lot smaller, and the goggles were also a little simpler, but they did require a large processor, and this was complicated. From the year 2000 on, they were very interesting. They've been very interesting applications, such as the typical aviation games, where you have the camera and you have the horizon and the height and so on. It seems very simple, but at the time it was a big step
Pero hasta que
forward.
no te das cuenta de estas cosas, pues antes cómo lo debían hacer. O las gafas ya
Until we
empezaron a ser
had
más
these
pequeñas.
devices, these
Y
applications,
todo
how
este
were
tema
things done
de
before?
llevarlo a lo que sea el público general es
And
lo que más
taking all of this
dinero se ha
to the
invertido, ¿no?
general public
Las potencias
is
más grandes
where
como Google
most
son las que están
investment
sacando
has
las
been made.
HoloLens, gafas mucho más
So
ergonómicas,
the
pero básicamente lo que
glasses that we
intentan es
use
que no
now
te
are
moleste
much
lo menos
simpler,
posible y tú puedas ver esa
much more
información
comfortable,
agregada
and the point is that using
para
the
mejorar, ¿no?
information
la visibilidad.
to improve
Y aparecieron
visibility.
empresas también que lo vieron muy interesante
And there have
Ya
also
que,
been a
por
number
ejemplo,
of
IKEA, tú
companies
cuando
that
tienes un
have
problema de las
realized
devoluciones,
and
¿no? Siempre que te compras
have
algo,
seen the
pues
use
si no
of
te gusta cómo
augmented
queda, lo tienes que
reality.
devolver y
For
eso pues tiene un
example,
coste.
IKEA,
Pues
if they
IKEA lo
have
que
an
dice
image
es, yo
of
te ofrezco
of
la
a
posibilidad de
seat
que lo
in
pongas en tu casa con
in
realidad
your lounge.
aumentada
If you
y te
don't like it, you
evites
can
ese
take it back,
compra y
and
devolución.
you
Entonces,
avoid that
tú puedes
process of
ver a
having
cómo va a
to go
quedar,
to the shop,
reduciendo
purchase
mucho el coste
something, and then
de
returning it, and
devoluciones.
that
Pues es un caso
reduces
claro
the cost of
de
returns
esta realidad
quite
aumentada
significantly.
sin ningún problema
Using
de seguridad ni
augmented
nada. Esto
reality,
sería
you
en
can use
general.
this without any
Y a partir de
security
esto, ¿cómo
issues
explotó realmente?
whatsoever.
Cuando la gente empezó a hablar
And
de realidad
so, when
aumentada?
did people
Fue con el
begin to
caso
talk
de
about augmented
Pokémon Go,
reality?
¿vale?
Let's talk about the
Dice así,
case
es
of
un poquito largo el
Pokemon.
vídeo y no lo cortaremos a mitad. El vídeo es de 2015, que parece
This video is from
que es de ayer.
2015.
Entiendo que casi todo el mundo conoce el mundo de Pokémon Go, ha ido evolucionando, ha habido
Many of
más
you know the
versiones,
Pokemon Go world.
pero
It's
lograron algo
evolved over
importante que
time,
era sacarte de casa,
but
¿no?
they achieved something that's very
Usaban
important,
simplemente
is
la
getting
posición
people out
GPS
of their houses
para aumentarte
using a
la
GPS to
aplicar
increase
esa realidad aumentada dentro de la
that
posición
augmented
GPS. Básicamente en tu
reality
pantalla aparecía
to be
Pokémon
able to
en la,
use
en la
that,
parte
and you had the Pokemon on your
aleatoria de
screen,
donde estabas.
depending on where you were situated.
No sé si alguno se propuso el problema de privacidad que tenía esto.
I don't know if
Yo creo que
anybody
quedó
thought about the privacy
bastante
element
claro con
of
este
this.
ejemplo. Si lo pasé así. El problema de privacidad que tenía esto es que básicamente
The
Google sabía dónde estabas en
privacy
cada momento, al igual
issue
que con el
was
GPS, pero
knowing
aquí
where
más
anybody was at any
masivamente.
given
¿Vale?
time.
Entonces era un poco... Veremos ese caso, que
We'll
cómo
have a look
se
at
puede
this
abordar el tema
particular
de
case and
privacidad.
how we can deal with that case
Esto era de
issue of
2015, de
privacy.
Niantic, fue como un easter egg, una
So
broma que hicieron
this
entre ellos
was
para
in
el aniversario, lo propusieron
2015,
y de
and it
repente
was a
vieron
kind
que
of a
esto
joke
tenía
that
futuro.
they
Y a
did
partir
had them between themselves, and a lot of companies realized that a lot of people were using this, and this was the case that recently came up, and we'll have a look at this now, because actually you can collaborate now. That's quite interesting. I'm sure you're familiar with Minecraft. You can do whatever you want with this video game. The augmented reality is absolutely wonderful, and it's about collaboration, and you can use the same, two users in the same scenario, and you can play without having to leave your home. You can do different tests and so on. This just came out quite recently.
To your creativity with Minecrafter.
Una pena porque nerviaste, pero aún no podemos jugarlo. Pero bueno, para que veáis un poco cómo ha ido evolucionando, ¿no?
So this is just an idea of how
videojuego sigue
things
estando
have
ahí
evolved.
como
There are still
algo
video
importante,
games
el
there as
tema
an
de realidad
essential
aumentada,
part
la
of
aplicación
augmented
sigue habiendo otros
reality,
ámbitos, pero
and it's
vemos
also
que
present in
los
other
videojuegos van mejorando, ¿no?
areas, but
También
the
se
point is
utiliza, en
that
los medios
things are
aparece
improving
para dar más impacto
significantly.
en visibilidad de los eventos. ¿Vale? La realidad aumentada te
Many
permite
organizations
que
use it
aparezca
to
un dragón
give
en
more
las
visibility
finales
to
de League of Legends
events.
en Corea y te aparecía en un estadio y ahí
There's
podías ver un
a
dragón, ¿no?
dragon
O
at
en el
the
estadio
end
de
of
Estudiantes de La Plata, donde
this case in the
metieron un
stadium,
león de fuego.
or
Entonces esto pues
in the
realmente en las redes
bottom left, you can
hace,
see
causa mucha impresión
a
y
lion
puedes
in
llegar
flames.
a llegar a más gente. O
And
lo
there's a
lo
different
empiezan a utilizar
techniques used to
empresas
reach
para
more
esos procesos de
people.
empresa 3.0.
It's used by companies
Ya empieza a aparecer un poquito
to
más que no solamente Pokémon Go, o ahora
reach
cuando
a
aparezca
greater
Minecraft
number
ya
of
en las
people,
noticias,
and
pues
it's
saldrá
not
por todos
only used
sitios.
by Pokemon Go, but in
¿Qué más
other
ejemplos
places.
tenemos?
What other examples
Una
do we
cosa
have?
es qué es AR y cómo funciona en general, pero la tecnología que hay detrás, pues casi siempre es
The
JavaScript.
technology
Y
behind
nosotros vamos a utilizar
this is
3JS. Lo
almost
explicará en
always
detalle
3Js.
Jorge, pero existen otras para que no
There are
os
others,
cerréis a una tecnología,
so
que puedes
don't
elegir la que
close
quieras,
yourself
puedes
just
usar
to
la de
one type
Google,
of
puedes usar
technology.
AR, se utiliza también con CJS, hay
You
toolkits,
can
una dedicada para Android,
turkeys,
o sea,
and
todo lo
there's one
tenéis,
for
son repositorios
Android.
abiertos, no hay ningún problema en que
They're
podéis
all
desarrollar de
open, and you
manera
can develop
open source y
them
colaborativa.
and
Pero
collaborate
nosotros
with
nos
them.
centraremos en la primera de todas, ¿vale? Porque si
We're
no,
going to concentrate on the first of
es
all of
inabarcable.
these.
¿Qué aplicaciones? Hemos visto videojuegos, hemos visto que es para impacto social, pero yo hay
We've
casos
seen
que no
that's
me había dado
used
cuenta que en
in
mi día a día
video
los estoy
games and for
viendo, ¿no?
social impact.
A la hora de aparcar, el
But
típico,
it
las
all can
líneas que
also be
aparecen
used
han sido
for
algo nuevo con las cámaras traseras de los
self-parking
coches y realmente
systems.
es realidad aumentada, ¿no? O sea,
And
te
what
está
we
dando
have
más
in cars is
información
actually
a la hora de
augmented
aparcar
reality. It's giving
con
you
esas líneas
information
para ver
as
cómo no
you're
tienes que
parking
girar,
with the
cuándo tienes que
lines
girar,
so that you know when you have to
la
turn.
parte sonora también sería una...
And there's
añades
also
información
a
a
sound,
lo que
a
realmente
bleeping
estás viendo.
sound
Entonces es muy
that goes along
interesante y
with
a lo
what
mejor
you're
no nos
seeing.
habíamos dado cuenta de que se
And
estaba
perhaps
aplicando
people
aquí.
don't realize this
Al
is
igual que en
actually
los casos para
augmented
hacer
reality.
temas de tiempo, porque cada vez
And there are
pues
also
la gente
cases in
la
terms
televisión la ve
of
menos, pues
the
intentan que sea más
weather,
atractivo con los programas del
because
tiempo,
it
poniendo
is a
tornados,
little bit more interesting than just watching
en aplicaciones
the
deportivas, en
TV,
el
and also
ciclismo ya
in
apareció que para
sports
saber las
applications,
distancias,
so
nos
you can
ponían a
know
los
the
ciclistas, los podía
distance
mover,
between
las
one
alineaciones de
cyclist and
fútbol.
another, for example,
Incluso
in
muchas
football.
veces me preguntaban si cuando ponías la televisión tienes un partido,
In
la publicidad que aparecía
fact, I would often
realmente
ask
era
myself
aparecía en el
if
campo o le estaban
matches, when
metiendo
you're
por
watching them on
encima.
TV,
Entonces, esas cosas
if
ya
the
incluso la gente duda si realmente lo que está pasando es realidad
advertising that
aumentada
they put in there was
o no,
actually
lo hacen
augmented reality, or if
realmente
it was actually physically there on the field.
También existen empresas, han visto que hay negocio, han empezado a meter
There are also
inyectar dinero y
many
dicen, oye, pues esto a lo
companies
mejor
that
es
are investing a lot of money
un
in
nicho
this
de mercado
field
que hay que
and have seen that
explorar,
maybe
se
a
empiezan a
niche
dar
of the
cursos
market
sobre
that
realidad
needs to be
aumentada,
looked
no sabes
into.
a qué dedicarte, te gusta el desarrollo, te puedes
Perhaps you
venir
don't
aquí,
know what
etcétera. Entonces
you
empiezan
want
a
to
aparecer
work in the
empresas
future.
que
Perhaps you could
ofrecen,
work with
como te
us,
decía, proyectos
and there
para
are
domótica, para
different
montar tu casa,
projects for
los
automation,
muebles,
for
etcétera, y
example,
poderlos, antes de comprarlos, poderlos ver en tu
knowing where
casa,
to put the furniture in
consultoría
your
de
home,
proyectos
in
en lo que
consultancy,
as a service o tema de juegos,
and
etcétera.
also in
Entonces
games
parece
and
que un poco
in
de industria sobre todo
services.
hay un
So
montón
there
para
is an
evitarte
industry, there
sobre
are many
todo
different
protección
openings
de riesgos laborales para que la persona
and
no tenga que meter
protection
las
of
manos por ahí,
health and
etcétera.
safety
Entonces
issues.
parece que el mundillo también está yendo
So
hacia
the
estos
world,
temas.
I would say, is kind of
También
moving
hay una duda
towards
bastante
this field.
importante en dónde llega la línea entre realidad aumentada y
An important point
realidad
is
virtual,
the
¿no? Y
actual
entonces está
difference
claro
between
que contra
augmented
más te alejes
reality
de la
and
realidad,
virtual
te estás
reality.
yendo a la virtual reality, ¿no? Entonces, el problema que
Sometimes you
tienen
think
esto
you're
es
seeing
que te tienen que
augmented
aislar
reality, but it's
totalmente de la
actually
realidad
virtual
y es un
reality.
proceso que el ser humano pues tiene problemas de mareos y tal, porque claro, no entiende muy bien dónde
Sometimes
está,
people get a little bit
te puedes
dizzy and
perder de la
they're not
orientación
able,
y
they
además necesitas un
get
equipo muy costoso.
disoriented,
En
and
proporción a la
so
realidad aumentada no
this
necesitas
has
una gran
to be taken into
cámara, no
account.
necesitas unas gafas muy potentes,
In
sino
augmented
te puede
reality,
servir
you
a las
don't need
HoloLens
very
o las más caras, pero
powerful
puedes hacerlo
lenses,
incluso con tu teléfono móvil
and you
y en
can even
cambio
use
estos
it
sistemas
with
pues
your
necesitas hardware
mobile
dedicado
phone.
y es bastante costoso.
So then,
Lo más novedoso que he visto yo, que fue hace poquito que apareció, no sé si lo conocéis, es este
recently something
videojuego que
new
estamos
came
viendo
up. I
aquí,
don't know if you've seen
que ya
this
directamente lo que hacen
video
es te
game
pones unos
before.
guantes y coge
You
cada
put
una de las
some
falanges
gloves
para
on,
coger los
and
dedos, ¿no?
you
Capturar todo el
put them on
movimiento
each
y básicamente te
finger,
permite al recargar,
and
coger
this
armas, es una
enables you
pasada.
to be able to touch
Pero
things,
claro,
to
yo no
pick
sé
things
cómo se va a
up,
comportar el cuerpo cuando realmente
to
tengas
get
allí todo el
involved in the game.
movimiento, tengas que estar
So I don't
coordinado
know
con
in
la cabeza,
reality
por dónde
how
miras,
this
etcétera,
coordinates
cómo
with
se va a comportar, ¿no? Pero esto es lo más potente que hay en
mind,
realidad virtual.
but I
Yo
would
creo
say this is
que
the
cuando
most
salga será
recent
bastante
thing
interesante. Lo
in
que pasa es que, claro, el costo de esto
virtual
son como
augmented
600 euros.
reality.
600 euros no es tan fácil tenerlo en tu casa para pocos juegos que hay. Que también hay casos de uso que
There are
no solo
also
aplican a
cases
empresa
of
y que
use
pueden
that
ser
are not only
beneficiosos
used for in
para todos, ¿no?
companies, but they can
En
be
campañas de
used
concienciación,
in
sobre todo
generally.
de donación de sangre,
In
se suele
different
utilizar.
campaigns, they have been
Incluso hay
used,
un
for example,
proyecto
in
en
the
UNICEF de
augmented
realidad
reality
aumentada, ¿no?
billboard
Para llevar la
campaign to
educación
show
a
the
países
power
que es
of
muy
blood
complicado llevar material
donations.
y a lo mejor con estos sistemas te
With
permite
these
ayudar
systems,
a los que lo
it
tienen más
enables you
complicado
to reach
con esta
difficult
tecnología, ¿no? Que no necesiten
publics
tocar
and
las cosas, pues le
difficult
puedes ayudar
products.
a que aprendan, a que puedan
And you can help
desarrollar en
people
esto y
to
pueda
understand and
mejorar
to develop and to
su nivel de vida.
improve their level of
Y lo que digo,
life.
para las compañías suele venir muy bien, da bastante más impacto que verlo. Y lo que sería todo esto es la introducción, tampoco
And
quería
all of this
explayarme
takes
más.
us
La
to
gracia de esto no
the
es cómo puedo
introduction,
aplicar
and
realidad
I don't want to
aumentada
go
y
on
seguridad.
too much, but
Los
there's also
casos de
the augmented
Pokémon Go ya te
reality
dan una
in
idea de que
security. That's what we're
básicamente,
getting
pues
to
bueno,
here.
te estás exponiendo, saben dónde cada vez que cojas un Pokémon, eso queda registrado.
So
entonces
each
hasta en
time
ese punto,
you work
pues
with a
hay
Pokemon, you play with a Pokemon,
vemos
that
que hay
gets
unos problemillas ahí
recorded
por
there. So there
defecto
are some
en lo que
issues
sería
that
la
need to
realidad
be
aumentada, ¿no? Velocidad.
developed and
Y
worked
lo
on
vamos a ir
in the
viendo.
field of augmented
Lo
reality.
primero, hay un caso claro que no tiene tanto que ver con
There
realidad
is
aumentada, sino
one
son las
clear
copias
case, and
a
that's
estas
the
aplicaciones.
issue of
Cuando
copies
algo
of these
explota y es
apps.
muy famoso,
So when
casi siempre
things go
aparecen
wrong and become
atacantes que se
very
dedican a robar
famous, there are
estas
many
aplicaciones para
attackers
intentar engañar a la víctima,
who
robarle
try
los datos,
to fool
etcétera. Y en
the
el caso, pues,
user.
con Pokémon Go salieron
And
miles de
with
aplicaciones
Pokemon Go, there were
similares,
many,
que la gente
many
se las
similar
descargaba por desconocimiento de que
applications,
eran
and people would
copias
download them not without realizing that
y
they were
puedes
copies.
cargarte el teléfono.
And
O
this could damage your
malware,
phone.
etcétera. O sea, tienes
And
que
there
tener
was
mucho
also the
cuidado
issue
con
of
lo que estás trabajando,
malware.
porque
So you have to be
redes
careful with
sociales.
what you're downloading,
Pero
ensuring
es que
that's
esto
from
no
the
tiene nada que ver
official
con la realidad, pero
pages.
es verdad que las
This has
aplicaciones
nothing to do
tienen
with
bueno,
augmented reality, but it's true that there are some
En
issues
el caso
depending on the
de seguridad,
applications.
ya hay trabajos
In terms
que
of
son bastante interesantes
security,
sobre,
there are
sobre este
interesting
tema.
lines
Hay
of
partes que
work.
antes de que la información llegue a la aplicación de realidad
Before
aumentada, hay
information
modelos detrás de
gets
confianza
to
que lo que
augmented
dicen es, en
reality,
el primer caso,
there are
hablan de que, claro, todo lo que
first
registra la
case,
cámara va a quedar guardado y puede haber problemas
everything
de
that is
privacidad de lo que
recorded
está
on
viendo. Si lo que
the
se mira
camera
no va solo a
is
la aplicación,
recorded,
sino que va a un
and
servidor,
you can
es que se puede estar
it can be
monitorizando
sent
todo.
to a
Lo
server
que
and it's
llaman
being
live
monitored.
logging, ¿no? O sea, igual
This
que
is
logging,
live
logger
logging.
con el teclado, pues aquí lo que dicen ya directamente es
So
live logging,
everything
que es todo lo
that
que estás haciendo
goes
queda registrado.
on
Entonces
the
intentan ver, sobre todo con políticas de seguridad
on the
y
computer is
privacidad,
being
de que no
registered.
esté todo el tiempo, de que depende de lo que estés grabando, o que, por ejemplo, si estás
It depends
con
what
cámara
you're
grabada,
recording, or
estás
it
intentando
depends
ver
what
una
your
te pones un
camera
documento,
is looking at
una pantalla
AR,
que no debería ser lo
but
que
in actual fact
lo
you're
que estás
using a
leyendo no
screen
debería
that
estar
you
registrando
shouldn't be
esa
reading, that you
información.
shouldn't be
Puede tener esa
recording
información.
that
Y en el caso
register.
del Walmart sí, pasa algo parecido, ¿no? Que lo que van son más a modelos de privacidad
And we can talk here about
basados en
privacy
lo que
models
si hay man in the middle dentro de
based on the
no
man
la
in
información
the
que me está
middle
metiendo es diferente, sino oye, si estás
case.
procesando bien la
It's
entrada que te
all
estoy metiendo,
about
me
whether
están
you're
intentando engañar.
processing
Y
the
varios modelos que
information
tenéis ahí los enlaces,
correctly.
son trabajos bastante interesantes.
And these are interesting lines of work that have come up over the last
es
few
una buena base
years,
para ir
and this is
para ir
a
creciendo,
good
¿vale?
basis
La parte
for growing,
anterior a la que llega la
and
aplicación.
this is
Pero
before we
también
actually
cuando
get to
sale
the
la
app
aplicación
itself.
también podemos tener problemas.
When we go to the app, we also
Lo más
can
claro
have
de aquí,
some
que te
issues.
suelen poner,
And
por
one of
ejemplo,
the
es,
examples
yo
that
me
commonly
quedo,
given
estoy con el
is
coche y
that I'm
ya
in
hay
my
aplicaciones
car,
que te dicen, oye,
and there
estás
are
demasiado
apps
cerca
that
de
are
un coche,
telling me that
por
I'm
favor,
too close
salta
to
una
another
alerta o
car,
te
and there's
avisa,
an
¿no?
alert
Pues
or
la gracia de esto es que te puedan,
an indication.
puedas meterte en y decir, no, no le
You
avises,
could
no en esa
get
distancia,
involved in
sino
this,
menor.
but don't
Para que
tell
el
me
coche
at this
no llegue a
distance, but
tener
at this
el aviso,
different distance, so
él
that
piensa, bueno,
the
pues le
car
avisa ya
advises you
freno,
at a
no te va a
different
avisar
time.
hasta que estés demasiado cerca y te
So
des.
you
Pues entonces estos
you
trabajos también
don't
tratan
brake
de
in time and you have an
asegurar
accident.
que la salida que te está dando la aplicación es realmente la que tienes que ver.
So the
Y aquí,
information that comes out from
podemos
it
ver
has
también
to
muchos
be
problemas de
necessarily
seguridad física
the
a
information
la
that
hora
you
de
need,
tú
because
estás
there can
trabajando con la
be
aplicación,
physical
tú, sobre todo el vehículo,
consequences,
es donde
especially
más
when you're working with
se salen estos trabajos, ¿no? Que ojo con las señales,
So
es algo parecido a lo que
careful
pasa
with
con
the
los
signals
temas de
and
la señal
so on.
en computer vision, ¿no? En los
It's
procesadores de imagen,
similar
que te pueden
to
engañar
computer
por
vision
señal.
that can give you the wrong
El
information
tema de
with the
privacidad, como
signals.
hemos dicho, es clave en
So in
todos
terms
estos
of
trabajos.
privacy, this is
Porque
key in all of
básicamente tú te
this
expones
work,
tanto el usuario que tiene la
because
aplicación
you're
y está usando
exposed, the person
marcadores
who's using the
físicos,
application is
te estás poniendo a
exposed,
saber en qué momento se está leyendo, si, por
exposed
ejemplo,
to when you're
como pasaba con
reading,
Pokémon Go, tú estabas
as
en
you,
la calle, podían
as was
saber
the
en
case
qué
with
momento
Pokemon
vais leyendo
Go.
cada Pokémon,
It's clear
etcétera.
that
Incluso
the information of
en
when
otros
you're using each
casos, desde
Pokemon or reading
exposición
each
de que tú,
Pokemon was recorded.
quieres poner un elemento
Or, for
en
example,
realidad
you
aumentada
want
y alguien
to
puede
put an
poner
element in augmented reality and
pero
somebody could
todos estos
modify
trabajos
that.
os he puesto las referencias y
I've given you all the
supongo que seguirán
references here of all these pieces of work, and I'm sure you'll have the slides and you'll be able to have a look at this, and I think it's quite
aparte de
interesting.
aquí van saliendo unos casos muy chulos porque a la hora de esconder información yo podría utilizarlo para hacer esta fotografía, ¿vale? Pues, por ejemplo, yo puedo esconder información en la propia información y que no se pueda saber hasta que no tenga la manera de sacarla. Lo que haces es, de alguna manera, pues filtrarlo, pues esconderla en el propio AR y así puedes pues, filtrar información, puedes hacer un coverchannel, lo que sea. Entonces hay trabajos también sobre esto, de cómo esconder información en realidad aumentada. ¿Qué más podemos hacer? Esto es muy interesante porque en algunas veces ya sí que, pues como decía, pues tienes el enfoque, tienes alguna manera de que alguna compañía quiera hacer impacto con su evento, y hay personas que se dedican, ¿no?, a intentar hacer vandalismo sobre ello. Yo no sé cómo está tipificada la ley de hacer vandalismo sobre un monumento, pero es complicado dónde llega el límite, ¿no?, y dónde puedes decir, pues a una Santa Colón ponerle eso. Pero lo gracioso de esto es que hay librerías open source para hacer grafitis en componentes AR. O sea, tú puedes decir, vale, yo me lo bajo y lo puedo hacer yo en mi casa tranquilamente, no necesito tener mucho conocimiento, y está libre y lo podéis usar. Es un caso bastante complicado de solucionar, ya que tú, ¿quién puede proteger a cada monumento de cada sitio para que no llegue alguien, monte el marcador para que lo pueda ver cualquier persona con R, como no bloquees los marcadores, ya verás tú cómo vas a proteger estas cosas. Por ahora en España no ha habido muchos casos, pero bueno, es algo que no sabemos muy bien cómo solucionar. ¿Qué otros problemas puede haber? Sobre todo, siguiendo con los casos estos de que tú vas por la calle y vas viendo mensajes, etcétera, ¿cómo controlas que alguien no te meta spam masivo en tu aplicación, ¿no? En que alguien diga, vale, yo sé que aquí va a haber personas jugando lo que sea, o trabajando con maquinaria, lo que sea, y puedo meterle allí todo el contenido que yo quiera, ¿no?, spamear. Es muy complicado de controlar porque no hay sistemas de autenticación en AR, de decir, oye, yo quiero que solo salga mi contenido, o solder surfing. Es un caso también de que yo, por ejemplo, lo puedo ver en mi móvil y otras personas no, porque si lo tengo detrás me lo va a ver, como me protejo contra eso. Al igual que el tema de vandalismo, que esto ya va más al que yo publico algo recomendado y alguien me lo quiera modificar. Ya no poner encima de algo real, sino algo que ha sido utilizado en la realidad aumentada, el poder editarlo. En estos casos son ya más complejos y que no tienen tanta solución. Lo que más se ha visto, lo que pasa es que depende de este HoloLens, que compra, es esta librería que lo que habla es de privacidad y seguridad en el toolkit de desarrollo. Hasta ahora todos los toolkits que hemos enseñado al principio de todo no te lo proporcionan. Lo único que haces es desarrollas, liberas los marcadores, te programas el modelo que quieres que aparezca en tu dispositivo, pero no habla en ningún momento de que solo lo pueda ver una persona, de que sea seguro, de que alguien pueda modificar y quien no, y en estos casos sí que ya empiezan a ver que puede ser un problema. Nosotros si desarrollas para la empresa, que una empresa quiera que tenga un producto que no quiere que nadie toque, pues ahí ya empieza a haber algunos lo que no es del todo libre porque ya dependes de nosotros. Un poco el problema. Y un poco las propuestas que hemos pensado, que vamos a ver en la parte práctica, es la siguiente, ¿no? Vemos que hay un problema en que yo quiero mostrar algo, pero no quiero que lo vea todo el mundo. ¿Cómo puedo hacer eso? ¿Puedo meter algún tipo de cifrado en esa información? ¿Es necesario que haya un equipo que yo controle para poder leer esos marcadores? ¿Puedo cerciorarme de que un documento de AR no es modificado? ¿No ha habido alguien que haya puesto un marcador encima para engañarme y que yo cuando lo voy a leer modifique el estado de mi dispositivo? Pues todo esto es lo que vamos a intentar ir viendo, ¿no?, con algunos ejemplos. Las cosas que vamos a ver, aunque iremos poco a poco, en ver con unos pequeños ejemplos cómo podemos solucionar estas cosas. Ya os digo que hay cosas que son más alcanzables, otras no, pero creo que al menos las primeras sí que las vamos a poder ver. Y bueno, sin más, compañero Jorge.
Bueno, pues una vez que hemos contado un poquillo todo este contexto más teórico, vamos a pasar a la parte práctica. Lo que vamos a hacer es, vamos a contextualizar primero la tecnología, os voy a explicar un poco cómo funciona en detalle, cuáles son las dinámicas que se suelen seguir con este tipo de tecnologías, y vamos a ir sobre el mismo ejemplo poco a poco, evolucionándolo hasta hacer algo un poco más complicado, ¿vale? Entonces vamos a ir de 0 no a 100, pero bueno, hasta donde lleguemos. Entonces, la librería que vamos a usar se llama ARJS. Esta librería es una librería que nos permite, mediante JavaScript, modelar entornos de realidad aumentada. A la hora de manejarla, esta librería lo que hace es sobre JS y a su vez sobre A-Frame, nos va a permitir de una forma muy sencilla en el navegador poder crear nuestra propia aplicación de realidad aumentada. Esto tiene bastantes puntos positivos en el sentido de que normalmente las librerías están planteadas para que tú te desarrolles una aplicación en Android o en un entorno móvil. Sin embargo, al estar ahora haciéndolo con tecnologías web, esto nos va a permitir ejecutar esta misma aplicación en nuestro teléfono o en nuestro ordenador. Y a la hora de hacer la aplicación vamos a jugar mucho con eso, porque normalmente necesitaríamos a lo mejor un marcador físico para poder nosotros colocar ese objeto de realidad aumentada en la realidad. Entonces, gracias a esto, lo que vamos a hacer es vamos a usar la cámara del portátil en vez de usar la cámara del móvil, que es la que normalmente usaríamos, y nos va a permitir de una forma rápida y fluida el ir haciendo las pruebas y el ir haciendo un poquito, el viendo los cambios según hagamos el código. Bueno, como os he comentado, aquí lo que vamos a hacer es que no vamos a usar estas dos tecnologías, que son las que encima tienen ARJS y se basa en marcadores, ¿vale? Esto, los marcadores de AR lo que nos van a permitir es colocar estas entidades de realidad aumentada en la realidad. Porque al final la realidad aumentada simplemente nos sirve para, de una forma visual, mostrar contenido, pero no vamos a procesar datos con ella. Los datos, los cifrados o cualquier otra cosa lo vamos a hacer de una forma tradicional, con un modelo cliente seguro. Aquí lo único que hacemos con AR es recibir los datos y mostrarlos en lo que es la realidad. Pero ¿cómo sabe nuestra aplicación dónde los va a mostrar? Aquí hay diferentes aproximaciones. La librería que nosotros usamos son marcadores, ¿vale? En este caso, los más conocidos pues son Giro, pero tenemos también, por ejemplo, los patrones, tenemos códigos QR o tenemos códigos de barras. Hay incluso otras librerías que te permitirían usar imágenes como marcadores. Entonces, lo que van a hacer estos códigos simplemente es decirle, quiero que me coloques aquí esta imagen. La librería lo va a entender y va a dibujarnos lo que nosotros le pidamos. Sin embargo, como comentaba antes Miguel, tenemos también el caso de Pokémon Go. El Pokémon Go lo que está haciendo es, nos está colocando estos elementos, que son los Pokémon, mediante coordenadas GPS. Esto es, en vez de decirle a la aplicación, quiero que cuando tú reconozcas este elemento me dibujes encima un objeto de realidad aumentada, quiero que cuando tú grabes en esta posición geográfica, quiero que en este punto exacto me coloques este elemento. Nosotros no vamos a usarlo, sin embargo, la librería que usamos sí que nos permite hacer esto, lo cual es bastante interesante. Vamos a ver un poquito el tema de las pruebas de concepto. Entonces, vamos a empezar por un hola mundo, ¿vale? Vamos a ir a lo más sencillito, lo que vamos a intentar hacer es dibujar un cubo. Para este taller tenemos un repositorio de GitHub liberado. Entonces, vamos a usar el código que va a estar en este repositorio. Así vamos a ganar en velocidad y si queréis seguirlo mientras lo voy explicando, vais a poder hacerlo. Para ello, para esta primera prueba y probablemente para las dos también, para las dos siguientes, vamos a usar por un lado GitHub, por otro lado vamos a usar esta librería de realidad aumentada y vamos a usar también Netlify. GitHub es un servicio que nos va a permitir alojar nuestro código y alojar las versiones de nuestro código de forma online. Y Netlify lo que va a hacer es, va a coger ese código y va a mostrárnoslo en una página web. Esto no va a ser completamente necesario porque también vamos a poder hacerlo desde terminal, pero bueno, queremos enseñaros todo el ciclo desde que veáis la página web hasta que la podáis liberar en internet y podéis usarla también desde el propio teléfono. A la hora de un proyecto con esta librería, es prácticamente igual que una página web. Vamos a tener un documento HTML en el que almacenemos el contenido. Vamos a tener scripts de JavaScript en el que modelemos cómo se comporta nuestra aplicación y vamos a tener estilos CSS para poder colocar ese contenido de una forma visual. Entonces, para ir empezando, cuando queramos hacer una aplicación con ARJS, vamos a tener que incluir en nuestro fichero estas dos librerías que son las de AR. Entonces, vamos a ir a nuestro código. ¿Vale? Y lo que vamos a hacer es, si os habéis descargado el repositorio, tendréis 3 carpetas dentro de la carpeta ejercicios, en la que vais a encontrar la prueba de concepto 0, que es la que vamos a hacer ahora, la prueba de concepto 1, que es la que haremos después, y la prueba de concepto 2, en la que haremos marcas de agua para documentos. Entonces, en esta primera prueba de concepto tenemos la solución y el ejercicio. Vamos a empezar por el ejercicio, ¿vale? Vamos aquí. Y lo que tenemos es el índice de nuestra aplicación ya preparado. Tenemos aquí los comentarios donde nos van a indicar dónde debemos de ir colocando esas líneas de código. Entonces, como hemos dicho, lo primero que tenemos que hacer es incluir estas dos líneas de código. Las tenéis dentro del README en el ejercicio, entonces podéis copiarlas de ahí también directamente sin tardar tanto. Aquí está el repositorio. Vamos a ejercicios.
You have the repository with the
Aquí tenemos las
exercises, the
líneas de
initial
código, ¿vale?
test, and there you have the lines of code.
¿Vale? Entonces, lo primero que vamos a hacer, como hemos dicho, esto es como una aplicación web de toda la vida. Aquí tenemos el doctype, tenemos HTML, tenemos el head y tenemos el body. Pues dentro del head lo que vamos a hacer es incluir estas librerías. Vale. Por otro lado, esto no es necesario, pero en estas pruebas de concepto hemos querido también incluiros unos estilos para que se vea un poquito más estético y más visual. Ahora lo veréis, pero lo vamos a añadir después, vamos a hacer también el cambio, para que veáis cómo es con estilos y sin estilos, la misma aplicación. Entonces, en una aplicación de realidad aumentada, con esta librería, tenemos varios tags que se explican aquí. Cuando vayamos a modelar una aplicación de realidad aumentada, con esta librería, lo que vamos a tener va a ser ciertos tags de HTML que nos proporciona la librería y que los podemos usar de forma muy sencilla para crear la aplicación. El primero que tenemos es el de Scene. Con este lo que vamos a hacer es modelar el escenario en el que vamos a colocar dentro de la realidad nuestros objetos. Tenemos los assets, que van a ser imágenes, vídeos, música, en general, contenido multimedia que queramos cargar en esa aplicación de realidad aumentada para usarlo posteriormente. Y que, por ejemplo, cuando nosotros estemos enfocando a un marcador, que como hemos dicho es lo que se usa para saber dónde posicionar ese elemento en realidad aumentada, pues en vez de ponernos un cubo, pues nos va a poner la imagen que nosotros decidamos. Por otro lado es el marcador, como comentaba. Es lo que se va a usar para posicionar los elementos en nuestra aplicación. Vamos a usar siempre el marcador giro en esta prueba de concepto porque es el más estándar y es así, pues usamos un solo marcador. Y por otro lado está la cámara. Lo que vamos a hacer es modelar una cámara que va a ser el ángulo de visión que nosotros tenemos respecto a ese escenario que hemos creado. Porque no es lo mismo en este tipo de objetos de realidad aumentada verlos por delante que por detrás, ya que son objetos en 3 dimensiones. Entonces, hemos importado las librerías. Ahora lo que vamos a hacer es crear nuestra aplicación. Como hemos dicho, tenemos el HTML y tenemos el head. En el head vamos a tener los 2 scripts que hemos importado y vamos a tener nuestros propios scripts si queremos hacer cosas a mayores, que simplemente posicionar elementos. Y dentro de lo que es el body de nuestra aplicación que es una aplicación web, vamos a tener la escena, vamos a tener la cámara, vamos a tener el marcador y vamos a tener los dibujos o las multimedias que queramos añadir a nuestra aplicación. Entonces, si vemos más en detalle el body, vamos a tener por un lado la escena, como se ve aquí. Esto va a tener unas opciones de configuración, en el repositorio están ya puestas, pero la más importante es la de ARJS, que marca que esta es una escena de ARJS y no de A-Frame, que es la librería que está por debajo. Dentro vamos a tener el marcador y la cámara.
And we
Entonces,
will have the
si
marker
quitamos
and the
estos
camera.
cuadros blancos y desvelamos el código,
So if we
vamos a ver esto,
get
¿vale?
rid of
Tenemos el
these,
marcador y
boxes
dentro de
and we
este
see the
elemento del
code,
marcador
then you will see
vamos
very
a poner
clearly
las
that we
cosas
have
que
the
nosotros
marker,
queremos que se
and
visualicen
within
cuando
these
la cámara
markers,
vea este
we're going
marcador.
to write what we
En este
want
caso, para
to
esta
see
primera prueba de
when the
concepto, lo que
camera
vamos a hacer
sees
es poner un
that
cubo
marker. So in this case, we're going
que
to
directamente
use
lo podemos crear
cube,
con
as
esta
I was
librería
saying.
sin
We can
necesidad de usar
create it with this
JavaScript
library without having
y vamos a
to
hacer que
use
ese cubo gire.
JavaScript. And we're going to make that cube
Y luego,
turn.
pues finalmente, que no se nos olvide el hecho de
And
poner la
of course,
cámara.
we
Si
don't
no
have to
ponemos la
forget
cámara,
the camera, because if
no
we
va a
don't
funcionar.
add the camera, then it's not going to work.
Entonces, como os he dicho, aquí tenemos en el repositorio el código.
So as I was saying, we have the code on the
Entonces,
repository.
dentro del body
Within
vamos a añadir
the body, we're
nuestra
going
escena.
to add our scene.
Vamos a tener un marcador.
Then we will have a marker.
Y dentro del marcador tenemos que definir
And
nuestro
within
cubo.
that marker, we have to define our
Entonces,
cube.
el elemento que se usa para
So
esto
the
dentro de A-Frame
element
se llama
we use
A-Box.
for this in A-Frame is called a
Lo
box.
que nos va a crear es una caja
And
que, como podéis ver,
it will create a
va a
box,
tener un
as the
color
name
rojo,
states.
va a tener estas
It's going to be
dimensiones
red, as you can see
y
there,
le vamos
rojo.
a poner una
It's
animación.
going to have these
Esta
dimensions here that
animación
we can
va a
see,
tener
and it's going to
ciertas
have an
propiedades
animation
en
with
los que en
certain
bucle
features
va a seguir
that,
girando en función
will
a estas
make
posiciones
it
que son de
keep
360
turning
grados.
non-stop in these different positions, which is 360
Y
degrees.
finalmente vamos a añadir la cámara para
And
que esto
finally,
funcione.
we're going
¿Vale?
to add the
Entonces,
camera to
tenemos
make
aquí la
this
cámara.
work. So we add the camera here,
Y guardamos.
and then we save.
Para ejecutar esto vamos a tener varias
In order
opciones,
to
¿vale?
execute
Ahora
this,
mismo yo lo
we'll
voy a
have
ejecutar
different
desde mi
options.
ordenador,
I'm going to
pero los
execute
siguientes
it from
pasos
my
lo que os voy a
computer
enseñar es
now, but
cómo
in the next steps,
publicar
I'm
esta
going to
aplicación en
show you
internet y que
how
la
to
podáis usar desde el
publish
móvil o
this
desde donde
application
sea.
on the internet, so you can use it from your phone
Entonces,
or
tengo
from
aquí
wherever you want.
¿Vale? Pues aquí esto. Dentro tenemos los
So we've
ejercicios
got
y la
this,
solución.
and the
Vamos a
exercises and the
ejercicios,
solution. We go on to exercises.
¿vale? Y como hemos dicho, aquí lo que
And
tenemos
as we were
es
saying,
el índice, los
we have
estilos
the index,
y
the
estáticos,
styles,
que son
and the
las
statics,
imágenes que
which
vayamos a
is
utilizar.
the pictures that we're going to use.
No tenemos JavaScript porque, como he
We
dicho,
don't
en
have
esta
JavaScript, as I
primera
was
prueba no
saying,
va a ser
because we're
necesario.
not going to use it
Lo
for
que vamos
this
a hacer
first
para
test.
ejecutarlo, pues vamos a
What
crear
we're
un
going to
servidor
do
en
to
local.
execute it is to create a local server with Python. So we use Python less 7, we use HTTPS 7, and we open it on the 8080 port. So we have this here, and if we go in here, as you can see, we see our application. This is our first application in augmented reality. But as I was saying, right now this is just a camera. It's looking for a place to position those elements, because right now it doesn't know where, it cannot distinguish. I have prepared here on my phone a marker, and as you can see, when I put it in front of the camera, yeah, sometimes with the light it doesn't work that well, but no, yeah, it does work regardless of the light, you can see. So we have a marker here, and what the marker is telling our camera is position this cube on this point. And because we said on the animation that we want the cube to be positioned in this way and for it to keep turning, but that's what it's doing. As you can see, this is a 3D object, so if I turn my object, then the cube is going to turn because it's not the same perspective. So this is the first conceptual test. This is without styles or anything, as I was saying, without aesthetics at all. What we're going to do in order to add those, do you remember that line I told you that we were not going to use? Yeah, we're going to add it now. We go back to the repository, and we add the styles here. We reload the page, and this is just so you can see how the appearance of our application changes just with this line. And now, if my phone decides to work, see, it's a tiny bit different. You can see it a bit better now, and then within this application we will be able to add additional content, for example, the instructions.
You have the hashtag there, especially if those of you who are watching us on streaming, in case you want to ask questions. This is very basic, and the next steps are going to be a bit more complicated. So you've got the hashtag here. If you ask any questions, I will be looking at it so that we can answer your questions very quickly. Instead, you cannot see it. It's hashtag CyberCamp Mari Morena. It's CyberCamp 19, Mari Morena.
Aquí tenemos esta primera prueba. Iremos poquito a poco, iremos haciendo un poquillo de tiempo por si nos queréis seguir ahora en vivo.
We'll go slowly, little by little, in case you don't want to follow us live. We'll explain it little by little. If you'd like to access this right now, you can't because it's on my computer. So I just want to explain how you can use services that are available to everybody. You can do this augmented reality online, and everybody can access this. So we'll go back to the PowerPoint.
Bueno, por supuesto.
We're using Git, so we're going to put it on GitHub. You have two options. You can do a fork from our repository. If you do that, you need the code, or you can set up your own concept test, add all the changes, and then we'll put that in the repository. We have this in GitHub. We have our code there. And we can synchronize this now with Netify. We have the GitHub repository. So let's create an account here on this service. It's Netlify. And this service allows us to use GitHub or other similar repositories and synchronize the repository with this service. And this lifts up our web page automatically. So if you would like to create an account, once you've done that, you just have to click on this button. Here's our Mari Morena account. You can't see it too well, but let's have a look a little bit closer. So we'll create a new site. We could use also Bitbucket. I'm going to be asked for authentication, and we've already synchronized these repositories. So we have to open this up in order to place it here and open up into our account, go into our account, and select the repository that we're interested in. It's CyberCamp 2019, security in augmented reality. And here we see our repository here. Let's go inside. And it's just a question of following the steps. And now we've already set up our repository. Let's change the name in case you'd like to do some tests. So now if you go into marimorena.com, then you'll have the repository, and we can navigate till we get there. Let's find out where it is. So it'll be in exercises. So it will be concept test 0. And in our case, we're going to go here to the solution. And as you can see, we've got this up here on the internet. We've had some permission to activate the camera, and now that's already been set up. So now if you go to Marimorena, netlify.com exercises, and in the first project solution, then you'll come into this webpage because it's a public one. You'll need this turning code that you can find on the internet. If you put gyro code, they are available there if you want to do the tests. This would be our first project. So very quickly, we've been able to create an augmented reality application. So just with this cube turning around. So this is what I was talking about earlier on, about how to create this web page. And this is what you would be able to see. Here we did a test with a piece of paper and a blue cube. So the examples that we have seen, we can see through them that they have focused very much on free time and games. And the examples that Miguel was talking about also for car parking. But the proposal we've made with regards to this workshop is more about trying to do something a little bit different with this technology. It's very visual and has a great impact, but we could use it perhaps for cybersecurity. Take this technology to cybersecurity. We're going to the physical element and take it to the people and use it in cybersecurity and make it a little bit easier to use. It was a bit of a crazy idea, but we've been able to do something with it, and that we've got a number of examples in which augmented reality can actually help us in terms of security. The first and most simple one that we thought of is something that we've all seen in offices, in schools, in public spaces. We're talking about the Wi-Fi code. So, hello, this is our Wi-Fi. So we have public Wi-Fi, and there's no issue with that. But in an office, for example, this could lead to a person, a visitor, an outsider, going onto our network and making use of it. So how can we make that a little bit more safe in terms of the passwords? We've all got written down on Post-it notes or just on a blackboard or so on. So what we're going to do is to use a turning code and to use that turning code with a QR with information. We're going to have a little bit of a break here now so that people who are still programming can continue. Somebody's asking about what SL we have used. It's the item from Mac, and we used ZCell. We added that on because they're easier to use. As you can see, it's self-completed and it's got memory and it's quite good to use. No more questions? No. So here you have the link again for the repository. So let's have a look at this example of the codes, access codes. Let's have a look at the simple example. There are some things that we would need to correct if we actually wanted to use this or put it into use, but it's just an example. We're going to use a marker just like in the previous example because it's valid for both. And it's going to have a small QR with our access code. So that QR stores our code, and any application that can read QR codes can read that code. So we'd need to encrypt that code and to make it only possible to decrypt that from using our application. In the corporate world, this would be using an application that would have some special access codes in order to decipher that information using the app. In the second example, we use encoding, and we wanted to be incremental we'll put in more and more concepts such as images and changing content. Another interesting thing is that when we use an app for this QR code, we can change that key. We could give it some different credentials for the Wi-Fi network for somebody who's a guest compared with somebody who's an employee. So if we take a look at the structure of the code, it's very similar to the one we had before. We have the scripts frame. We will join in our own JavaScripts. We'll have a camera and a QR code and what we're going to draw. And this is what we're going to add on. In this case, the top part will be exactly the same. What we're going to change is this second line in the bottom part, and we're going to add our QR library. This allows us to read the QR. This is a library that is available in GitHub. I'm going to turn the camera off for just a second. There's another question that has come up in the meantime. So, any recommendation for the video controller for executing? I'm using Atom, but you could Sublime or any other. I prefer these IDs that are less closed than Eclipse or some of the other well-known ones. But there are, on the whole, no problems. But Git in GitHub, I don't really know how it works in Windows. I think you can use it from the ID directly, but if not, you'd need an external program, but I can't tell you much more about that. So let's go to the second concept test, which is the Wi-Fi one. So let's go to the second exercise. We have our libraries with the JavaScript in order to manage the QR codes. Here I have the marker, if you would like to use that. And there will be a number of pictures above all the top part and all the aesthetic part that are used in this field. So let's go to the exercise. Open up the index, which is what we're interested in. And the first step, as we said, we want to be able to read QR codes. So the marker is not a QR. Let's distinguish between one thing and another. We've got a marker here. What we have here, what I'm showing with the mouse, is the marker. This is what recognizes the library to put the position in the augmented reality. On the other side, this is a QR code that's storing information. They're not the same thing, but we could use the QR code as a marker if we wanted to. So let's continue now. So let's go to the index. We're adding our library to read QR. So, as in the previous case, we have the code that we need. Let's go to the solution. I forgot to add one little piece on here, just this little bit here. We'll take our script and we paste it here. This was saying we're going to use this script in this location, and it's in the lib file, and this file that you can see down here. So we have a library that can now read the QRs. So we want to be able to tell it how to use our QRs. So we've included that in this information here. and that is going to use the camera on our laptop and create a reading loop to locate the QR codes. If it finds one, what it will do is it will send the information to this library that we've created for that QR code. And in this case, the information is a password, and it will show us on the screen, and we'll see that in a moment. So let's execute this library first of all. So now what we have in our project is what you can see here. We have an augmented reality application. So the code is very similar to the previous case. And we've added a library to interpret the information from the QR codes and a small script that we've done to use that library and send us the information from that QR code so that we can use it and show it to the user. So we're not going to use a cube in this particular case. Now we're going to use an image in this case. We're going to show the user a poster, maybe on a wall, with the access code with the password on it. So on one of the slides, we'll show one of the elements that we have. And this allows us to use the application to show this multimedia content, which can be images or videos. So we have an example of these kind of elements. So when we've been creating these elements, what we have is an asset. We say that we want it to be an image. We've given this ID to the image so that we can locate it. And it will be in this static file, and it will be called password panel PNG. So this is the Wi-Fi poster that we can show people using the application, using this augmented reality. So this is the same as before. So we need a marker of a high-row type. So rather than showing the cube, what we're going to say to our app is that it's an asset. It's the image that we created beforehand. Okay, we take it from here and we place it in this position. This is an element of the library, and we need to indicate that it should show us with this kind of rotation so that when we focus on it with our mobile device or similar, so that it was up the right way, not back to front. And we scale it from 1:1. That is, it will be the same size as the marker. And if you see here, we have the source of the content. We have this ID here, the asset. So now if we execute this, let's see what happens. So now we have our project. We're going to do the same thing we did before. We execute this local server on our computer. Let's go to our navigator. And we're going to 8080. So we have a similar presentation to beforehand. If you have any questions, use the hashtag, please.
Entonces le vamos a enseñar este código.
And we're going to show this code. I'm going to see if my mobile will work for me.
Ahora no quiere.
No, it doesn't want to work.
Vale, vamos a ver qué está fallando.
Let's just see what's going wrong here. We've got our asset here,
Tenemos nuestra imagen
and we've got our image,
y probablemente lo que esté pasando es que tenemos aquí un script.
and we've probably got a script here that needs something else, and we need to add that in.
Entonces, nosotros le tenemos que mostrar a nuestro usuario
We
la
need
contraseña.
to show
Si es capaz de
the
descifrar
password
ese
to
código
our
QR,
user. If it's
lo que
able
vamos a hacer
to
es
decipher that
mostrárselo.
QR
Vale,
code,
para eso,
we need to be
¿cómo
able
lo
to
hacemos?
show that.
Estamos
So
hablando de realidad
how
aumentada,
do
¿cómo
we
lo
do
mostramos en
that?
texto?
We're talking about augmented
Vale, pues,
reality. How do we
dentro
show a text?
de esta librería,
So
nos
within
proporcionan
this
también la opción de
library,
cómo hacerlo.
we've got the
Para
option of
ello,
how to do that.
vamos a usar lo que es una entity
So we need an entity here.
también, y os comento. Esta entity va a tener un ID que es password,
The
va a tener
ID for this
la
entity will
rotación que
be
nuestra imagen,
password, the same
la vamos a
rotation as the
posicionar dentro de
image,
nuestra imagen
and we'll
para que
position it
quede en donde
inside our
nosotros queremos que
image,
quede.
so
No
it's
que,
in the place that we
no que el
want it
texto
to
esté en un
be.
lado
So
y
they
en
don't
el
just
otro
have the
lado
text
de la
on one
habitación
side,
tengamos el
and on the
marcador.
other side of the room we've got the marker.
Vamos a escalarla para que
So
sea un
let's
poco más
scale
grande
it to make it a
del
little
tamaño
bit
del QR,
bigger than the size of
y
the QR,
inicialmente le vamos a poner este valor que va a ser
and we'll give it this
password
initial
no encontrado,
value.
¿vale?
It's
Entonces,
password not
ahora os
found.
enseñaré el script de JavaScript que lo que está haciendo es
I'll show you the
inicialmente
JavaScript
va a
in a
buscar
moment.
esta entity
Initially,
para
it will
añadirle el
search for
contenido.
this entity
¿Vale?
to add the content.
Vamos a ver si ahora quiere.
Let's see if it wants to do it now.
Vale, ahora sí me lo está enseñando.
Yeah,
Entonces,
now it is showing
ahora
it,
en vez de estar
as you can see.
mostrando un
So
cubo,
now, instead
lo
of
que nos va a mostrar
showing a cube, what
este
it is
panel de
going to do is
a lo
show
mejor ahora lo
this
veis un poco raro
Wi-Fi
porque dices,
panel.
bueno, pero lo estás grabando con
It
el
looks a bit
ordenador.
weird
El
now
asunto está en que en el momento
because
en el
we are
que
using it
publiquemos esto
without
en
computer. The
internet,
thing is, the moment we
lo que vamos
publish
a
this
hacer
on
no
the
es usar la
internet,
cámara de nuestro
we're not
ordenador,
going
es
to
usar la
use
cámara
our
del móvil.
computers
Pero
or our
bueno, por
laptop's
simplicidad
camera, but
vamos a
our
usarnos para
phone's
estas
camera.
pruebas,
But
pues es más
just,
cómodo ir
for
haciéndolo
simplicity,
desde el
because it's
ordenador y
easier
porque
to
así
do
se
it
puede ver nuestra
for
pantalla.
these demonstrations, we're doing it from the
Entonces,
laptop.
lo que hemos visto es que de momento no nos sale
So
el texto.
what we've seen so far is that we didn't have text yet. If we
No nos está
show
apareciendo
the
nada.
QR now, as you can see, we didn't see any
Vamos a ver cómo
text.
funciona el script.
And now let's see how the script works.
Vamos a el lector de QRs, que este es,
So we go
digamos,
to
el
the
código que hemos hecho
QR
nosotros para
reader,
decirle a la
which
librería de
is a
QRs
code that we did ourselves
tiene
to
que
tell
hacer
the
con este
QR
código.
library what to do with this
Y lo que va a
QR.
hacer es, va a buscar el
And
elemento
what
password
it is going to do is find the
y le va a
password
añadir
element,
un atributo
add an
es el de
attribute
texto,
to it, which is
y le
text,
va a poner un valor.
and
En este caso
give
va
it
a
a
ser
value,
el-
which in
el
this
dato que hay
case
dentro de nuestro
is
código QR,
the
¿vale?
data that we have within
Entonces,
our QR
esto
code.
ya lo hemos levantado antes
So we've
desde
already
Netlify. Vamos a probar.
erased this from Netlify.
Entonces, aquí ahora ya es algo más sencillo. Solo tenemos
And now
que
it's a bit easier because all we have to do is input this here.
Tenemos otra pregunta.
We have another question, although
although
it's not about AR, but Jorge is asking whether which MacBook you use for programming and whether you can use it for graphic design as well. I'm using a MacBook Pro. I use it with any Linux distributor. I can use Linux or I can use this MacBook. It does work for programming. It works for graphic design as well, although I usually complement it with a tablet. Now, we back to this. As you can see, we now see the image, and what I'm trying to do is for it to read this small QR code which we have here behind, but it doesn't really want to work. Let's see again. because we have obviously uploaded with something that is not right. It's the demo effect, as you know, but this is the kind of thing that happens in a workshop, isn't it? And we can see the camera here. Well, just in case, because I always have this, just in case I have input something wrong during the effect. So we have this lifted here, because we're going to have a different image, see? Because this is an older version. So basically what it says here is that password has not been found. And as you can see, it has read our QR code, and we have our password, which is my password key in this case, as you can see. I'm just giving access to the camera now, and see, it's not detecting the password not found, and now when you come closer, then you do get our Wi-Fi password. Sometimes light reflections in the screen prevent the camera from detecting the QR. So this is our second concept test, and as we have seen, we've got the assets here as we have added them, and you have the examples. You can see on the slide we have the older image. So up to now, what we've been doing is an incremental development of our code. We started doing only a cube, adding a red cube which turns. On that code, we have decided to use it for cybersecurity, and so we've got rid of the cube, and we have added a Wi-Fi panel image, and we have added QR code to our marker, and we have given the possibility of reading the QR information. So in this way, whoever comes to our office will not know the password so clearly, and they will have to use an application in order to obtain that code. So it won't be just anyone who looks into our office from the window. This is just an example, but we think that it could actually be used for many sorts of information, and it's something that's very interesting when it comes to protecting passwords or the information of our physical environment. Now, if we go just another step further, we can think that this could obviously be used for other things. How about using it for verifying documents, for example? Could we take this digital world to reality so that we can show users more information about these documents or certain documents that they have printed on paper? So with a marker or with a QR code, we're going to print them together with contracts, so for example an exam, and we're going to be able to verify that that contract or that document has not been modified, for example, or who that document has been delivered to, for example. And further than that, we will be able to see what level of sensitivity the information contained in it has. So in order to do this, we start complicating things a little bit more. You have the repository, you know, the hashtag, CyberCamp Morena, if you have questions. And now we're going to test 2. We will be able to see metadata with this. We will be able to trace this document and know who this document has been delivered to, whether this is confidential, and if it appears published on the internet, for example, or on social networks, we will be able to locate who has filtered it, where it comes from. And we will also be able to see whether this document is confidential, reserved, or whether it is public information. And in order to do this, we are going to start encrypting information with for this QR code, and it will only be us who are able to decipher it. So I'm going to show you the structure again so you can see that even for this, our AR application doesn't really change. What changes is what's behind the scenes, but showing the information is exactly as easy as it was before. So in order to do it, we're going to use the QR reading library, and on top of that, we're going to use this other library that we're going to bring from a CDN, which is for cryptography. So on the one hand, we have to encrypt, which we're going to do through Python, and then we have to encrypt, which we're going to do through JavaScript. And this is more complicated because some libraries thought so they use the same library to encrypt and decipher, but when you actually have to use different encryption or cipher in different environments, you have to know exactly how it works, and so it's going to be a bit more difficult. But I will show you later how we've done it, so you see how it's done. So we have a scene, we have camera, a marker, and then we have the information that we want to show. And here we're going to add a little bit more code in our body. We have the scene. We're going to have different assets that will model the 3 states our application will have, which will be valid document, not valid document, or no QR found for the information. Be careful. We're also going to use a hero marker, which is a combination in this case of 2 markers. So we're going to combine this double marker because we are using a lot of information because our QR has grown and it's not so easy to put it in that hero marker, so we have to have it outside. In this library we cannot do it, but in other libraries you could actually use this QR as a marker directly, but because this is the simpler one to use on web, then we've decided to find a balance between what it offered us and what it didn't. So we have a marker, as we were saying, it will have a combined image, and then we'll have the camera. Now, we're going to see how this QR code is created. We're going to take a PDF, a digital document from our computer, and what we will do is we will take the files binary, the metadata, and we're going to do an HMAC with this metadata so that we are sure that it cannot be modified afterwards. Then we're going to take a list of the metadata. We're not going to show it in this concept test, but you could do it. You could even include the title of the document, when it was created or modified. We're going to have the confidentiality level, whether it is private or public or extremely confidential. We're going to say who the owner of the document is, the file, which in this case will be the person it is delivered to. And we're also going to use either the whole document or URL to the digital document in a server, so that we can then check the 2 documents against each other and make sure the content has not changed to what we have stored. So what we're going to do is, on the one side, creating the QR on a Python script, and on the other hand, we're going to decipher the information on JavaScript. So, as I was saying, we have the QR on the one hand, and then this other part, which is any browser where we decipher it. This is what it's going to look like. So we go back to the exercise, and the first thing that we're going to do is to add this new library that we have to import, and that's going to bring the crypto functions. So we go back to the exercise number 2. So, because we are importing this from a CDN, we're going to need the internet, but we could always previously have downloaded the library and then just add it to our file. So on this QR reading script is where we've made the most changes, and we're going to have a look at how we are encrypting this. So we go to QR reader, and as you can see, the code is very similar to the one we had before, but as we get here, we start seeing different functions that will allow us to work with the information for the QR. So this is where we're looking at the camera and reading constantly the information it brings until we find our QR. And the moment the QR is found, then the function will stop. Then we'll also have the deciphering function. This is a conceptual test, so we're not storing anything on the server. Or rather we are storing it now, but it shouldn't be done in this way. We should do it in a safer way. But because we want this to be easier, and for the purposes of this workshop, we're going to do it like this. So we're going to name our library, which is this one, and then we're going to decipher all the information that this QR library has given us. So we're going to take this library. We know that we have a specific kind of cipher and that it's in mode CFB. And so just finding the library through here, it will give us a string which will contain all the information. Now we're going to use this string here, and what we're going to do is when the QR code is read, we're going to decipher it with this option, which I have mentioned briefly earlier, and this data that it has decrypted, we're going to add to the image that we're showing. So at the beginning, we're going to have an image saying we don't know the state, or a state unknown, because we cannot find a QR. But if we eventually find the QR and our application can decrypt it, that means that the deciphering is adequate, so the person had the keys in order to do it, then it will show the information contained in the QR. So what we're going to do is first see whether this is valid or not, then the owner, and then the level of sensitivity. And then if it's not valid, then we will have a different image which tells the user that the code is not valid, and to be careful because the code is not valid. So this is more or less the code script, and this is what we've just imported. So we, as we were saying, import the ciphering library to use it in a script, and then we've looked into what has changed with respect to the earlier version. So we go back to our scene, to our content, and as I was saying, we don't have just one image now, we will have different images which model all the state of our applications. So we're going to take those assets and we're going to add them. I'm going to show them to you now. They're on the statics file. And we have this one that shows the document is correct, and we will have the owner on the left and the sensitivity level on the right. We have this one which will basically say QR is not valid, be careful, and then we finally have the unknown version, and we directly just write it on the image, which is basically saying we have not been able to read the QR, so we don't even know sensitivity, and we have it in red because we're not able to verify it. And this will be the initial state. So we've added our images here. These are the identifiers to be able to use them afterwards, and this is the path to the statics file where they are stored. So now we've done this, we keep using our hero marker, and we're going to add, in this case, not only the image, the initial image that we've set, but also our text, which is the owner, and the sensitivity level. Right. So we've added them, just as we did earlier. We have an entity. One is owner, the other one is level of encryption. Then we have the camera, position of the text with respect to the marker, as we differentiated before. The scale, i.e. the size, it's going to have with respect to the marker. The value, which initially will be 0, and then the color of the text in this case. And so we have the first part, and let's test it now. I'm going to close the other server. And so let's go back to the exercise. So we've got the contents here. Structure is what we're saying. We've got the styles, library, the statics, the index. We lift our local server with Python. And let's see. Here we are. This is our local server. And as we were saying before, we have a QR code here together with the marker. We're going to show it to the camera, and as you can see, it hasn't read the QR code yet because it's too far away from the camera. And if we bring it closer and my phone decides to work for me, see if maybe I've forgotten to import the library. Could be. Let me check.
Now we have it. Now it's reading properly. It's showing us the panel. And it's not showing the text. Sometimes it doesn't. It's reading it quickly now. It's not showing the text right now. That's what happened to us previously. It's showing that everything is correct. It's taken the information from the QR and it's decrypted it. It's decrypted this information and it's changing the image and saying that it's okay. Let's see why there's an error. These are the development elements of the server. This is the hash for the content, and this hash is for the metadata, and this is the owner. In this case, we've put Lala, and the sensitivity. This is a public document, and once we've got this information using the JavaScript, which is what we're showing here, so let's take a look at it from the exercise. And we have it here. Let's show that. And here you can see, on the one hand, the owner and also the level of sensitivity. So let's see an occasion when it's unable to encrypt. So we have just a plain text. It's not able to decrypt that because it hasn't been encrypted. It will say that it is incorrect. We'll put that a little bit closer so that I can read properly. So now you can see this QR is not valid. It's not verifying the information in the document, so be careful. We're unable to decipher it. So somebody maybe has modified this QR code or has not encrypted it using our codes. So this would be the third POC. And the case would be how we could print this QR. How do we take that digital document, insert it, and then print it? So let me show you the Python script. It's not in the repository. I'll put it in later on. I think it was this one. Let me just have a look. It's just here. We have questions, even though it's not directly related to this. People are asking where your shirt is from. It's very nice. I don't know where it's from. People ask a lot of things about computing, but nobody asks how we are. And asking how we are. It's the first day of CyberCamp. We've got the hackathon later on, so we're just starting, but thank you for asking. It's nice to be remembered. Let me show you the Python code. We're going to take a document. And we're taking this document and a certificate. To encrypt something, we need the certificate or document. If not, it will generate it itself in this particular case. We're going to take the metadata document. And we're going to open up that document, that PDF, read its metadata, and encode it in base 64. After this, we'll take the content from the document and do the same thing, do an HMAC, take a certificate that's been generated, and add the ownership, add the sensibility level, we will take the information and cipher it, and using this function, which is encrypt. We're using a Python library here. In this case, it's AES. And we're going to use CFB from before, which is a size of 128. So once we have this ciphered code, we're going to get a library and create a QR code using that. We create an image and the encrypted code. We're going to call it cipher QR. And I'll show you how we would do this. So let's go to the terminal. So it's the CyberCamp workshop. And here we have it. So in order to execute this, I'm going to show you the documents that we have. We have a PDF in order to create this QR. And we will say that this is the document in this directory, and we're going to put it in verbose to show the information. The owner, instead of la, it will be another one. and the password. So these are the steps we took previously. Since we haven't given it as a certificate, it made its own. And we have the hashes that taken from the information, and this is the metadata. It's the PDF call for papers for CyberCamp, and authors in CB, and all of this information is being stored, and we will be able to show that in the app that we have created. It says that there is an owner and the sensibility level, and it will give us the encrypted information. This is the encrypted text that we have included. Let me show you the image, which is just over here. It's this one. We'd need that gyro code that we mentioned before. If we show this to our app, rather than the la 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 as the owner will be dueño, the owner. So with this Python code, we've done this part of the computer, and then afterwards we'll use the mobile to decrypt this and give the user the information he or she needs about that document and the metadata and where that original document is. So once we finish this part, if you want to do these exercises, they will all be available in this repository. It's CyberCamp 2019-security with AR workshop. So in the details of each project, you have the information of the code. You will also have it in a PDF at the end, so that you have that available, and you have the information of how we've done that. And of course, if you have any questions, you can still use their hashtag CyberCamp Maria Morena. So let's conclude, and Miguel will talk about future ideas, because we have given some examples, but we believe that many more things can be done with this. Augmented reality is not only for use in video games. We can use it in other different fields as well, such as in security, as we've been talking about up until now. The sensibility level of documents is very interesting, and this is increasing now. And as we use the goggles in augmented reality more and more, we'll be able to use that and use it with regards to documents they have around the office, and whether or not you can use them officially or not. We have the issue that LPs usually use codes, and we go to the physical plane and use these markers, and whether or not these documents can be used or not, and it's not so clear. Documents tend to have a very high confidentiality level, but there are other uses that you can put to with this hardware with regards to augmented reality. There's another example, and it's a case of authentication. Anything to do with automation, and this is very interesting in the field of augmented reality, and without the need to be physically in a given place. These are options that we could propose, or in the first case, in terms of vandalism, how you could propose systems that are already set up so that you can protect so that nothing can be put on top of different materials. We are unable to go this far, but it would be very interesting to see what solutions you might propose for this. And we'll see that it will not only be used in video games. And in physical level, we'll stop using the usual post-it notes and have other different options through augmented reality. This is a very well-known case of how far augmented reality can go. What about if augmented reality actually reaches physical reality? It's about how far we can go.
Y además puedes quedarte con los puntos de fidelización. Eres una noche afortunada. Tienes que confiar en la aplicación. ¿Te sientes nada? Gracias. Chao.
Here we can see that the case of privacy, somebody can see who you're talking with when you're making a call, and so on. Then the issue of spam is also a very clear one. So in advertising comes to this point, they'll have information on about where you are, and you'll just simply be receiving information on different products. You may not believe it, but Japan is not like this. But obviously, technology is very part of life there. The screens are there, but there aren't tracks to walk along like that in actual fact. I think it's pretty clear, and we can see that the problems are specifically in privacy. If people can see what you're doing and the suggestions that you will be receiving, and depending on how you navigate, you'll be received different information from what somebody else would be receiving. So where is this going towards? What are the trends? So it's regarding capturing you, and you might be part of a video game, and it's not a profile that you have set up. In the area of tourism, it's very interesting because you won't need to imagine how things were before. You can directly follow different routes using these different guides. This is quite an interesting field, and I believe that it's already being used in Barcelona. And tourism and augmented reality is an interesting point. In education, we saw the examples about UNICEF previously, taking technology to different places where it's difficult to use. Augmented reality can be used in different schools or in medicine. How we can see illnesses or pain, which would be otherwise very difficult if we didn't have this technology. But it's still not clear how it will be used in security in order to make environments safe. We've tried to see how this might be used, but I think we're very much in the early stages now. Now, if you have any questions, we're here available to answer them for you. Thank you very much. I don't have a question. I've tried to follow everything that you were doing from the start, and there was a point when it was really, really fast. I know you understand it, but some of us to follow it was a little bit difficult. It was just to say, well done, it was excellent, but actually you're going really, really fast through the screens, and I found it hard to keep up. It's difficult in 2 hours to condense everything into such a short time, and that's why we put everything in the repository. It was just a little bit too quick for me. But in any case, it was excellent. If you'd like to do this at home, you can go through the same process. Yeah, it was moving along really, really fast, and the slides were moving along, and I found it hard to keep up. It was very, very interesting, however. Yeah, hopefully we'll choose something else. Thank you very much.
Pues muchísimas gracias.
Well, thank you, everybody. Thank you very much indeed.